just released yesterday, we had some more information about Dune Awakening drop, and there are a handful of screenshots as well as some testimonials that have been released, we'll say, from Funcom and some of the creators who have had exclusive early access. We're going to go ahead and take a quick look at all the individual images and try to discern what the heck is going on here in this game. All right, so going ahead and taking a look at the first still image that we have here. This is essentially what you would expect the standard UI would look like. Now, just from a main point, this looks very, very clean, which is something that I like to talk about, especially with UIs that are a little bit convoluted and a little bit too much. Now, it appears that these two are approaching an enemy base and they are going to go ahead and fight whatever's in here. Up here on the top left, it says no journeys tracked, which I'm guessing the journeys are going to be what we are talking about when we say like your traditional quests. Now, I've already heard in some of the conversations that have been said about Dune Awakening, or at least some of the early playtests and the blog posts that were allowed to be released, that there's a heavy emphasis on story, which honestly, given the universe being the storied universe that it was, it makes sense that they would have a huge emphasis on this. Not necessarily to, we'll say, take the player completely off the track away from exploration. However, there is a main quest line that we would have to go through, and it seems like there's going to be a heavy emphasis here. Now, if we look at these journeys, again, they could be as simple as, assault this base or what have you, or they could be your kind of like your main story quest, we'll say your MSQ for this particular game. Now, down here in the bottom left, it looks like we have our basic, we'll say, metric gauges and health bars, so to speak. So, of course, the red, I would be far pressed to believe that it is anything but the health bar. And I mean, I would be very, very, I would be very surprised if that were the case. Up here, this looks like the water gauge. Now, again, this seems like it is going to be the primary reason to survive, or the primary method of survival in this game, which is, of course, your water. And that goes along with Arrakis and the entirety of the story and the universe is that water is precious. Water is life. Like there's 3 different tiers. I'd imagine if you are standing out in direct sunlight for a while, this would drain faster. If you're in shade, it won't drain, or it won't drain as fast, or it'll be slower. Believe that there are certain debuffs that you would get as you become more dehydrated until it's gone completely. Again, that's a little bit of speculation, but that's pretty cool how clean it looks and how prominent it is as far as whatever you're doing. You always have to keep in mind what it is. Now, these two, I have a couple of questions about more so. I would venture a guess that this one up here, because of this, we'll say, marker here, I would definitely say that it's something to do with your heart rate. And perhaps if your heart rate is too high, it could affect you and apply like a debuff, or if you're in a more relaxed state, it doesn't drain as much water as possible. I could see that being these two working in conjunction together. Now, again, I have no idea what that is, but I would venture a guess that this has something to do with your heart rate, because there is a certain bar that pops up, which we'll see in another screenshot. There is a almost heat gauge that pops up, and you'll be able to see it. And if you hit a certain point, you will start suffering from heat stroke. Down here in the bottom left, not quite sure what this one would be. I'd venture a guess that this is essentially your energy levels throughout the day or as you were spending time here. So this is something that you would have to track. You would be probably very fatigued as this bar starts to get towards the end. Now, again, this is just kind of an idea of what this is. This also could be something related to your energy systems for your cutter ray, which is the main way that we go ahead about gathering in this universe. So I'd be interested to see what they say here. For your skills, it looks like we're going with a very simplistic approach as far as your skills are concerned, which I'm on board. Like, we don't need to have 72 different buttons all doing these different skills. Let's get 4 or 5 and make them very simple. Now, I believe this one might be the Mentat skill, or Mentat mentality, the Mentat tree line, where this ability will allow you to scan this whole area to see all these different enemies. And then if we look at this one over here, this looks like the drone. It kind of looks like the drone with the large needle that we've seen in the previews. I would venture a guess that these two are independent of each other. Given that this one has, we'll say, a bit more detail, I would say that this is related to the player's class, their specific class. The flying mosquito could just be a specific skill that they picked up during crafting. This one over here, I don't really have an idea. And if you guys have a better idea than I do, please go ahead and leave a comment in the comment section down below, because I'm unsure of what that may be, but I'd be curious to see what your thoughts are. And then up here, we have our directional gauge and what appears to be like our main focus of where we would go. If we were tracking a journey or a quest, this would be pointing us in the right direction. Now, this screenshot here gives us a quick look at the building aspect of the game. Now, where we are right now is that it's showing the different ways that we can manipulate the walls and change the structures the way that we want to. And this guy's sprinting at nothing. Looks like we have a bunch of different variations of these walls that are all independent. And it does seem like we can go ahead and move each one of these pieces independently and place them where we want them to. So that's a pretty cool feature. What they've highlighted in this game, especially about their holograms, is that players will be able to set it up and then have other players come in and take a look and add to the building on their own. So if you and your friends are in the guild, you guys can all work to the same cause together, which is pretty cool. Also, this looks like that heat gauge, that sun gauge, like you're standing out in direct sun too much and it's starting to affect you. We can see that in this scene, he already has a lower, we'll say, water reserve, and he's going to need to fix that here soon. But it also shows like some of the materials that we might have. You can change the individual set as well as all these different structures. Now moving on, it looks like this is essentially our vehicle hub. Now up here you can see that there is a specific journey that we are on, or a specific quest that we are focusing on. And it looks like this is a 2-player sand cycle that is just going through, or sand speeder. The health is already down, the water is fairly low. And then you can also see this temperature gauge. Now, I'm curious if this temperature gauge is for the player individually or for the bike itself, because I can imagine if the bike was out in the sun for too long that it could eventually cause it to burn. And then just your standard vehicle options over here, which is pretty cool. I want to say that this down here has something to do with your ammunition. This could be a trooper of some sort or a rifle user. Or a ranged weapon user, we'll say, and this could be the weapon that they use, or at least the individual ammo. Not 100% sure on that. In this picture, it looks like we have the ornithopter, and it looks like it's carrying a vehicle down here. So this could be one of those modified vehicle options that they're choosing. Now, given that we are headed toward a spice blow, which again, spice is life in Dune, so this is probably a very rare resource that we're after. It looks like with the modifications that we have that we can carry a spice harvester and drop it off while we're gathering all that and probably have to protect it. This looks like maybe like an overclock ability, which allows us to speed up, something along that. But this is pretty cool to see like the UI in a bunch of different vehicles, which I like. And this just here looks like it is us arriving at a specific base. I don't know if this is a player's base, but given that there's a question mark almost directly lined up with this, I would venture a guess that this is like a point of interest that we can go ahead and look at while we are flying around. Doesn't look like we're tracking anything here, so that could be something cool that we have to pay attention to. And this last still is taking a look at the drone, which we saw in that first image, and I'm guessing that this is essentially pick your target and fly into it and kill it. We saw that in the trailer, and it seemed to either kill or knock out the enemy. But regardless, this was pretty interesting to see straight up as far as the UI would be concerned, because it's highlighting all the individual bodies, I'm guessing, within this camp. Pretty neat. So this is something that has been mentioned, and especially because we are using this plasma cutter array. When we utilize this, we can scan this particular node that we are looking at, and then from there, we're able to identify the specific lines or the weak points of this. So as we are scanning through, we can go ahead and specifically hit those markers. The better that we do that, the faster that we will go ahead and mine that particular node or gather that particular resource. The developers have really made a huge effort to make this aspect a lot more engaging. Instead of just going up to a node and then clicking F to mine it, this is specifically looking to have like a little mini game. The better that you trace this out as you are moving through, the better the efficiency rate of getting these particular stones, which I'd imagine would be that you get more stones out of it or it's mined faster, which is pretty cool. And this last still image that we have looks like this is a downed ornithopter, and we are salvaging some of the stuff. Now notice that the plasma ray looks like it's heavily upgraded, so I'm guessing that's going to be something that goes faster all the way through or moves faster all the way through, as long as you are essentially slicing along that highlighted line for the weak points. Again, pretty cool to show that there is certain levels of upgrades that you can get, and you can kind of build it from there. Now, looking at character creation and kind of the ideas or the classes that we have made available, we were able to see some of the customizations and really how you want to spin your character your own specific way. So if we're looking here, we can go ahead and see that they have tons and tons of different sliders. This is actually, I would imagine, commonplace in most MMOs nowadays. Like, you have to have a certain level of customization for your specific character for most players to even be interested. I don't know if I would have gone with the glowing green eyes, but hey, that's just me. And on top of that, it looks like that there is a ton of hairstyles and different variations that you could go with if you wanted to. Now, again, the character diversity, I think, is a very important thing in most games, and customization, I think, is the best way to put it. Being able to put your own self into a game and have it look as custom as you are, I think that's pretty cool. Now, this is one of the more exciting stills that we were able to see. So looking at the 4 different classes, and it was kind of as I theorized, this looks like the 4 different classes that we will be able to start with, or the mentors, so to speak. So when we're going ahead through, it looks like at this particular option, we are choosing our mentor, which is essentially our baseline class. Now, the developers have really made an emphasis that you're really going to be mingling a lot of your choices with other disciplines and skills that you can learn, mentors, and they will affect you in your journey and your skill capabilities. So the Mentat looks like it is more of a strategy and recon, which you can see over here. The Mentat in the Dune universe are essentially superhuman computers, analyzing and understanding a vast amount of data very, very quickly, which, I mean, in this description here hits it on the head perfectly. And underneath of that, we have a trooper, a sword master, and a Bene Gesserit acolyte. Now, the troopers seem to be more of the run and gun, explosive, shoot them down kind of character. The sword master seems to be the melee focus. There has been some information that was dropped out by a video by Force Gaming, which I'll link down in the description below, because he had exclusive access to Dune Awakening, and he was able to give a better idea of the specific classes. And each one of these get their own specific ability to start. So he mentioned that a Mentat can use that echolocation skill to identify everything around them to get a better idea of what they are doing, which we've also seen that in the trailer. And he mentioned that a Swordmaster can get a deflect ability, which allows them to deflect ranged attacks to get in close so that they can actually attack in melee. And then the Bene Gesserit Acolyte has actually been confirmed that it won't be gender locked. So in the Dune universe, it was the Sisterhood of Bene Gesserit, which again would lock it to females. However, it does seem like you can both be male and female in this game. And the Bene Gesserits are the voice users, so they can compel other players and characters to do things that they want them to do. So essentially the baseline ability is to compel a player or an NPC from a great distance to walk towards the Bene Gesserit Acolyte. So essentially forcing them to a force taunt, we'll say. All in all, this seems very cool. What we can see up here, the third option is the mentor, but it looks like we can choose like specific families and perhaps a house underneath. That's interesting. And what we see here is essentially your baseline skill tree. Everything up here looks like it is your main menu. So inventory, crafting, technology, skills, journey, social, permissions. This seems like your basic main menu that you have. But taking a look at the skills, it looks like this particular character chose the Mentat and has the battlefield calculation, which is that scan ability that we saw. But then as we see the different trees, we can move up and through to see these more, we'll say, isolated skills. Well, this is pretty cool, actually, taking a look at all this as we're going through. Now, I would be interested to see like what some of the skill trees are or how they work, but it looks like up here, and I can't tell if this is a part of the technology or just the number of where they are at, but I would say, venture a guess that this character is like level 23, and this is a level 16 tier. Like these are unlocked at different tier levels. So as you go up, you have to choose this one, then you can choose left or right, and then connect them all the way through. So it does seem like there's a choices matter kind of thing going on. All in all, it seems like they are putting a lot of effort to make sure that, one, Dune Awakening is staying close to the lore, as close to the lore as possible, as well as being able to identify what is going to be important and make that kind of new player experience as, we'll say, simple as possible. Now, again, these are just images and, you know, what we can draw off of there. I've linked, again, the Force Gaming video, who had exclusive access to it. If you guys want to see a little bit more in depth, he just posted it a couple hours ago from the time of this recording. So very exciting, very cool stuff. If you guys wanted to get a complete wrap up based off of everything that we know, or at least was told, you can click this video here, which will show you everything that I was able to research up until like yesterday. Aside from that, stay caffeinated, sleepers.